This is an exclusive excerpt from the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Patty Farmer is the author of a rather comprehensive book that delves into the Playboy empire and its influence on the world of music. The book is called Playboy Swings: How Hugh Hefner and Playboy Changed the Face of Music. She's on the line with us right now from Orange County in Southern California. Hi, Patty.
Hi, Peter. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your interest.
Thanks for being on the program. Now, I'm just wondering, how many people, would you say the majority of people, are not aware of the influence that the Playboy empire has had on music?
I think many people are not aware, and that was one of the most interesting things in writing this book. And actually, that's why I wrote this book. As you probably know, there have been books about the Playboy bunnies, books about the magazine, about the original Playboy himself, Hugh Hefner, but there's never been a book about entertainment, Playboy entertainment. And in doing all my research, I found out that for almost 20 years, Playboy was the largest employer of entertainment in the country, in the United States. So I find that rather remarkable that nobody has focused on this huge contribution that's been made to the entertainment world.
It's interesting you should say that, because just by coincidence, a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at some YouTube video. I was checking up on people like Sammy Davis Jr., for instance, and there were clips from various Playboy parties, which was, I guess, a show that was done. And there was always music. There was always live music. There was always performances taking place. Is that part of what was going on in the culture within the Playboy world?
That was part of it. Hefner had become such a phenomenon that by the late 50s, he was asked to do a variety show, or a TV show. And I'm sure the networks had in mind a variety show similar to Ed Sullivan or other shows of the day where guests would come out and sing a song or tell a joke and then maybe sit and chat for a little bit. But Hef had a different idea. He wanted to make it a little bit more intimate setting, so he had it in his home, supposedly, where everybody's sitting around and sitting on couches and talking, and what do you know, Sammy Davis might pop in, and maybe they could talk him into singing a song, and the same with Tony Bennett or Cy Coleman or, one of the big comedians of the day. So it was a different kind of format there.
Is Playboy's involvement within music merely an outgrowth of Hef's own personal interest and style in music?
Yeah, Peter, you've hit that right on the head. Hef loved jazz. He always loved jazz, going back to high school even, where he wrote about it for the school paper. So it was a personal passion of his, and he used it. He showcased it and used it for celebrations. The first Playboy Jazz Festival was a big party that he threw to commemorate the 5th anniversary of the magazine. And because he loved jazz, he had his second in charge pick up the phone and invite Ella Fitzgerald and Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong to come and perform. And it ended up that it went on for 3 days and became an iconic festival. But that's the long answer to your quick question. I'm sorry.
No, it's no problem. Going back to the beginning, I mean, Playboy is this iconic brand name and this magazine. But going back to the beginning of, for instance, when he got involved in music and got involved with jazz festivals, to be honest, the United States and Canada was a little more puritanical at that time when Playboy first started. Were any of the artists who first jumped on board with things like the Playboy Jazz Festival, were any of them leery to attach themselves to the Playboy brand name?
Not so much the artists, but the city officials. Hef wanted to have it in his hometown of Chicago, and the first venue, it was run by the city and Chicago Stadium. They said, yes, of course you could rent the stadium. And then they had a lot of pressure from both the church and civic leaders. Well, actually, the church put the pressure on the civic leaders, and they withdrew their permission. So at the last minute, they had to scramble around and find another venue to hold a festival. So, and that's a theme that's repeated many times. You know, I'm sure you're aware that between the church and the conservative groups and the government, there was always somebody trying to put Playboy, either the Playboy magazine or just the whole Playboy organization, out of business.
What about today? What about the role that Playboy plays within music today? Is it as strong as ever, or has it declined, or has it increased?
Well, I think it's they set the groundwork back in, you know, the late 1950s for the the festival was the big thing, and it's still going strong today. It's become a yearly event that jazz performers, you know, really mark on their calendars. June, you know, make sure we have the dates for the jazz festival, and everybody jockeys for a position. So it's certainly an iconic and a prestigious event. Many people told me that, you know, Sonny Rollins, the famous Sonny Rollins, really looked forward to playing the festival. Al Jarreau, you know, all the greats from the day, all the way up to the younger troupe today. And the Playboy clubs, the original batch, the last one closed in 1988, but we have 21st century Playboy clubs opening up. So I think that they're always involved. As long as we have Hugh Hefner around, which we still do, and he's vital and active in things, and he's always pushing the music.
In putting this book together, did you have personal interaction with Hugh Hefner to get this book off the ground?
I did. Not actually to get it off the ground. I had to get about, you know, a good, you know, quarter of the way into it before I actually got that phone call from Steve Martinez, who said, you know, Miss Farmer, I wanted to introduce myself. I am Hugh Hefner's personal archivist, and he asked me to call you and open our archives to you. So I think I had to win their trust. They knew my journalistic history. They knew I was serious, but I think they wanted to know that I was really worth their time. And I was later told that on a daily basis they get hundreds of requests from journalists around the world who are writing articles or writing books or say they are, you know, that want to talk to Hef and talk to the other people at Playboy. So it took me about a year into this before I had full access. And now I am, you know, I don't want to toot my own horn, but Playboy says I'm one of theirs, you know, so I do feel like I've been embraced and I have the Playboy stamp of approval.
Excellent. Well, in talking to Hef, how reflective was he about the whole process of music within the Playboy organization?
Hef is, you know, very willing to talk and to chat about it. Going back to, you know, 1953 and how the magazine got started. There are also other people that luckily we still have around today. Victor Lowndes, who was the second in charge, was very forthcoming. Keith Hefner, Hef's brother, who was there at the clubs. You know, he was a big part of the Playboy clubs. You know, he was very informative. So everybody loves talking about it. You know, it was a great time. The music was wonderful. The clubs were definitely iconic and important. They gave a lot of artists their start, and they gave them a stage to be able to perfect their craft. You know, we have people like Joan Rivers that performed there, Al Jarreau ran on. And in the book, Playboy Swings, they all talk on the record and tell their stories about performing either at the festival or at the clubs and how important it was in the development of who they became and the development of music. And also the advancement civil rights. Here in the States, the clubs opened in 1960, and we were still operating under segregation. And Hefner was truly colorblind and is credited with breaking the color barriers on stage and in the audience, which I found that fascinating.
Well, we have less than a minute, and I just want to bring up the fact that you talked a little bit about your own pedigree, and you've written one of your previous books, The Persian Room Presents, which talks about the halcyon days of New York nightlife. And when you put the two books together, people often talk, especially when you get to a certain age, of the good old days. Were they really the good old days, or are these also some good old days as well, or is this an era gone by?
You're exactly right, Peter. I think it was just a different time. It was a time of the small nightclubs and small jazz clubs. And unfortunately, maybe some of the larger cities, New York, we still have the Blue Note and the Cafe Carlyle and some other small clubs, but not as many as we had 2 years ago and not as many as we had 5 years ago. So unfortunately, the smaller clubs are closing. I think they're not economically vibrant for owners to run them. We have Birdland, which is wonderful and thriving and a good showcase. But I think, the festivals, the larger venues are what's replacing what we had in the good old days.
The book is called Playboy Swings, How Hugh Hefner and Playboy Changed the Face of Music. It's written by Patty Farmer. Patty, thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on the program with us.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Patty Farmer, author of Playboy Swings, How Hugh Hefner and Playboy Changed the Face of Music. You can go to my website at thestuffile.com, go to the What's On page for the show, which is show number 0320, and you'll find links to Patty's website, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order her book directly.
You've just heard an exclusive excerpt from the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. To hear any or all of the full hour-long shows, visit thestufffile.com. Stuff is spelled STUPH. That's thestufffile.com. A presentation of Flying Fish Communications.